that's why it's very important that you need to solve communication to a layer where it becomes like a proper open for everyone to use. It becomes borderless, it becomes neutral, it becomes censorship resistant.
What type of person would actually use a decentralized video platform?
People who prefer a lot of open source, people who prefer a lot of privacy. For us, product design became very, very important since early 2021 itself. It's not Zoom for Web3. It's not just a platform which you should use. It's essentially a proper infrastructure and a network. Hype is also a value, and hype is created in the bull market. So if you need to create any kind of tokens, you need to think about these tenets, that it should have high velocity and more distribution. That's the only way you can make people hold your tokens.
Okay, so Ayush, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So you have an interesting story. You skipped a flight to be here.
That's right.
How did that happen?
Yeah, so my flight was on 16th of March and at 7 p.m. It was a Turkish Airways. This was the first Turkish Airways flight I was taking. But I came here for ETH Denver. Then from Denver, I was in Denver for a while. And then I thought that, hey, let's go to SF as well. Because a lot of my friends were there. I had to see the Web3 scenes here. And so I just came here. And then on 14th, I got a ping from Furkan. And we were discussing about streaming in general. And at Huddle, what we are doing is that we're building something in streaming technology. So we had a very, very good chat. I loved chatting. And then I ended up staying at the Founders Inc. for 6 hours that day. And that made me realize that, hey, this is great. And I ended up coming again on 15th. And then that made me thinking that, hey, you know what? It's just 2 days I've been here. I'm getting a lot of good vibe here. And then I decided to skip my flight.
So what are you building at Huddle?
So yeah, what we're building is essentially a decentralized real-time communication network. So we have a 3-pronged approach. First is an app, which looks exactly like Zoom, but it's built in a completely decentralized fashion. That means you can do all the things you can do on Zoom or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams, but first of all, your video quality is better. You get a 1080 quality, you look better. Number 2 is that the calls are cheaper. And third is that it's much more performant in nature. And it's also very, very private in nature. So that makes it easy to use. And you can use it without any logins. That means you don't need to log in via Google OAuth. That means I don't take any of your emails, your phone numbers, your locations and stuff like that. Or you can log in via your wallets. And it's been live for the last 1 year now. I've done more than 1 million minutes of meetings so far. And the second is an SDK, which is exactly like where developers can essentially use that SDKs to build something on top of it. Like can use our SDKs to embed the video. So more than 100 projects have built on top of us so far. And the third is the protocol, which is the most interesting part. That means let's suppose we three are doing a call, and let's suppose Omar, you have a good internet connection. You can become a node and you can power the call for all three of us. So instead of paying money to AWS and Jeff Bezos, I pay money to you in terms of Huddle tokens, which is getting live in the next few months. Yeah.
Who pays you?
Who pays us in terms of, the end clients pay us similar to how they pay Zoom.
Okay.
They pay us, and then whatever we were paying to AWS, we pay to you in terms of that.
So if I want to get on a call with Vishal, right, we'll either use Slack Huddle or we'll use Google Meet.
Yeah, so Slack Huddle, first of all, Slack Huddle is way different. Slack Huddle is the one which took our name. So we had the name first. 2.5 years back, but Slack Huddle came like 1.5 years back. So that's why we have Huddle.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Lawsuit?
So we have filed for Huddle's own trademark. So we have the trademark. So,
okay.
Talk shit. Go ahead. Talk shit about Slack.
Yeah, Slack Huddle is not that great because the audio quality is good, but video, it doesn't support more than 6 people. We support more than 500 people. So I think that's one of the differences. And I think more than that, it's much more private as well. It's much more, you can record the calls. You can store it in a much more, I'll say, cheaper fashion, economical fashion. So I think that makes us a clear winner.
So what I was saying kind of was like, if I want to talk to Vishal, we'll use like Google Meets or Slack. If I want to talk to my friends, I'll FaceTime them. What are the use cases for what type of person would actually use a decentralized video platform?
Yeah, great question. So right now what we have been seeing so far is the emergent behavior where people who prefer a lot of open source, people who prefer a lot of privacy, people who prefer to play around with these new crypto primitives. Exactly, people who are more of a gamers in general, who like to tinker with the new technologies in general. So people who have used Google Meet or Zoom for just a few months now, have started in the video conferencing industry just for the few months. They try to use Huddle 01 in tandem with Zoom and Google Meet and say that, hey, this is cooler because I don't need to log in via my Google account. I can just log in as a guest. I can use my crypto wallets to log in. I can use my NFT as my AR and VR avatars. Oh, I can be pseudonymous here. So people who prefer to have a different kind of identities, that means one is an online, one is an offline, they try to prefer Huddle 01 on the platform level as compared to Zoom or Google Meet.
Interesting. So how do you say it? Pseudonymous?
Pseudonymous, yeah. So not completely anonymous, but like you can have a completely different avatar in the online world.
That's interesting to me. When I was younger, I definitely had a few profiles that were pseudonymous.
Yeah.
What do you ever see there being, like on Twitter now in crypto especially, there's a lot of people who don't go by their real name.
That's true.
Do you see there being potential for a social app or like some type of like community where everyone's pseudonymous?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've completely hit the target. There's something called as Poster, which was...
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so Poster is something where you have to post, and the rule of that number one social network is that you cannot be, you have to be anon. You cannot have your own actual identity. If you put it in a picture, you're done. Like you cannot have that. So I was on that platform for a long time, and then you can do shit posting there. You can do anything which you could be. So at that place, I was a person I always wanted. I cherished. Say his name is Daniel Kahneman. He's the author of Thinking Fast and Slow. So I wrote, like, I became a anon of like a Kahneman kind of account which I created, and then I did a lot of posting. The pretty good account in general in terms of the social network strategies which happens there.
What did you shit post? Give us like the best shit post you did.
Yeah, so behavioral economics in general. So what I shit posted was, one of the things is behavioral economics is a great field, but sometimes a lot of academicians use those as a voodoo science.
Yeah.
So I posted that, hey, behavioral economics is one of the best voodoo sciences which exists on the earth.
So do you see there being, I'm sure you've gotten this before, what are like the safety risks of everyone being able to say what they want without there being any real consequences?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And in terms of content moderation, I don't think there has been a complete standardization which has come so far. So I don't have a great answer to that question. But what I've been seeing is that there are a lot of upwards and downwards in terms of a community governed kind of a model where you say that, hey, this is not looking really cool. And then it gets striked off and there's a 51% consensus. So that kind of approach is working, yeah.
So Twitter recently did this thing or Elon Musk just put out a tweet where he said, in the coming future, everyone who has a verified account will be able to show up on the For You section of Twitter. But if you don't have a verified account, meaning if you don't pay the $8 a month or whatever it is, you won't show up on the For You page.
What
You'll only show up, bro. You'll only show up in following.
What is Go ahead. You're shaking your head too.
So I think the first time when he started off with and by saying the overall mission statement of being the town square of Earth, I think that's a completely different tangent to what actually was proposed. And if you do these kind of things, you are not a town square for Earth. So completely.
I didn't know town square for Earth had 5 ads when I scroll. Right.
That's true.
Well, you ever been to Times Square?
I have, but I don't have to look at the ads.
True.
I can look at a lot of other things.
Exactly.
There's a lot of homeless people I can look at.
And then you can use AI as a kind of that, hey, we are doing this because AI is coming up and we need verified accounts to tackle these kind of things.
That was his reasoning, right? He said that the reason he did it is because there's so many AI bot accounts being created that the only way to counteract that is to add a paywall to everything.
That's true. Yeah.
You guys are smart. Is that the only way to do it?
Well, they could theoretically get around it by just doing driver license ID verification and not charge anyone money.
It's a smart angle to get a lot of ARRs and business flowing into picture, but still, I don't think advertisers have completely gained trust back to the ecosystem, to the system of Twitter. So not sure how that will turn around to be. Yeah.
Do you think being verified on Twitter is still a negative signal? Because I remember for a while, like in the beginning when it first came out, if you you paid for Twitter Blue, it's almost like a negative signal. Although now I feel like if you don't have it, it's just you're not really gaining much. In fact, you're losing kind of engagement on your tweets.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting question, to be honest. I'm also guilty of that. I actually didn't wanted to have a Twitter Blue for a long time. And then I started seeing that after that, my engagement was going for a toss. And then when I had Twitter Blue, my engagement started increasing better. I had a better bookmark where I can use those bookmarks into the folders and stuff like that. So that really helped me because I was a I'm a voracious reader on Twitter in general. So I do everything on the bookmarks.
Yeah.
So that really started helping me. But this voting strategy in terms of that you can only vote once you have Twitter Blue, I don't think that's a great move.
Yeah.
Not being able to vote unless you have Twitter Blue is very, I don't know, it's somewhat polarizing.
Yeah.
I think one thing he did that was really smart was now you can actually see bookmarks. So if you look at a tweet now, you can see under it, you can see likes, you can see how many people commented, but you can also see how many people bookmarked it.
Yeah.
Which is actually a really good point because there are definitely a lot of tweets that people identify with, but they don't want to like it because it'll tell all their followers that they liked it.
That's true.
So they'll bookmark it instead. And so now there's a way to almost support a tweet or to help a tweet get more engagement without letting everyone know that you support it, which is interesting.
I think one more thing in this is, which I started seeing is that the likes and the bookmarks of the long form, the Twitter threads, the mega threads, you've been observing that the likes and the kind of bookmarks, they have similar, it's 1:1 kind of ratio. I started seeing that. That's very fascinating. I never saw that earlier. So that made me realize that how many people still prefer to bookmark rather than just liking it or retweeting it at the end of the day.
I will say, how many people will bookmark it as I'll go back and read it later, and you never go back to the book?
I do that a lot, actually. Right? At this point, I just screenshot tweets.
I've been doing. I bookmark like 20 things and maybe two or three.
I don't go back as well a lot. And for me, likes actually became a bookmark for a long time. Like I used to like frantically, because then I used to go back to my likes and they say, okay, these are things which I liked in general. So I'm like 28,000 likes, but because bookmark was so much inside in terms of you just need to go inside, click on the 3 buttons and then bookmark it. It was a bummer, but now I think it has changed. So let's see how it goes.
Interesting.
So Huddle has around 11,000 followers on Twitter.
Yeah.
How did that happen? It's very rare for company accounts to kind of get that level of following, especially like, I don't know, Web3 companies, I would say.
That's true. So for us, one thing is that Huddle, though it's a proper crypto or a blockchain-based company, we never had a token. Like it's been 2.5 years, we didn't launch a token.
Why?
Because we believe that the tokens are a very good model to incentivize a lot of, I'll say, decentralization's major, I'll say the foundation layer is that how many of these nodes are running in picture. So these crypto in general helps in spiraling up those nodes really fast. So that means solving for supply first and then thinking of solving for demand. So a lot of the infrastructures right now which exist in the crypto industry, why they launched token first is that there are a lot of nodes all across the earth. But since there was no demand, at the end of the day, those nodes also shut down because they don't get it. We thought that, hey, hold on, why not just build the infrastructure and build the first project on the infrastructures ourselves. So build the infrastructure layer completely, a proper video conferencing infrastructure. And they said, hey, instead of just telling developers to build on top of us, why not build ourselves something first and show to developers that what kind of potential this infrastructure has. So we built the Huddle 01 app, which look exactly like Zoom and can compete with Zoom in terms of scalability, in terms of quality, in terms of these new kind of things. And then we opened the infrastructure for people to build. Now, what that solved was that there are hundreds of projects building on top of us. And that's solving demand. Now, as the demand is getting sorted, now we are thinking about solving the supply side. Because now all the people who are node providers in general who could run their own servers at their own places, they see that, hey, these people have a lot of demand on the platform, on the infrastructure. Why not spin up the nodes? Because now I can earn money from this. So I think that's the approach which we have taken. And that's the reason why we didn't launch token on the first day itself. It's like doing an IPO on day one. You're not ready even to have your own team built completely. So if you launch the token on day one, which we believe was not the right way to attack. The token is a very good strategy to get a GTM.
Yeah.
But to reach GTM, you need to have a team, you need to have a product, you need to have an infrastructure.
Yeah.
And a couple of things.
Interesting. And then how far along were you before you had the full team that you have now?
Yeah. So I think in terms of team, that's the major part which took us the most, I think, blood and sweat. I always talk to my co-founder Sushmit that we could have raised larger, but at the cost of not getting a culture and the team which we have right now. So it took a lot of time because crypto in general is a nascent industry. So you don't get 10x developers at the word go. You need to get a developer and give them space and toolkits so that they become 10x at your organization. So we did that for the last 1.5, 2 years. Hired a couple of very, very curious people and give them the space and toolkit so that they can become 10x in their space. And post that, now we are a team of 14 people completely, and in which there are 9 engineers, 2 designers, 2 in marketing, 2 in sales, and then me and Sushmit as the co-founders. So yeah, that's where we are.
What does the marketing team look like for you guys to get users on like a Web3 kind of decentralized platform?
Yeah, so the marketing is a very objective function that they need to, first of all, make sure that we are integrated into all these scheduler apps. For example, Calendly has a competitor called as cal.com, which is like open source Calendly. So now we are integrated into cal.com as well. Pierre is a friend. Pierre,
oh, really?
Yeah, so Pierre actually helped us. We did a Twitter Spaces with him like a year back. So very interesting story. So we actually had been approaching Calendly for a long time.
Okay.
That, hey, guys, we are ready. We are as good as Zoom, as Google Meet. Integrate us. Please have us there. We didn't get a revert for a long time. And then I saw Pierre coming up with cal.com.
Yeah.
And I was following Alexis for a while. And then I saw that, okay, 776 is tweeting about it. This looks interesting. And then we saw that it's completely open source. So we tried to just do a proper pull request. And we saw that in 3 days, it got integrated in cal.com. And post that, we started getting an immense amount of traction. So we've done a lot of, I think, more than 2,700 meetings have been, 2,700 bookings have been done on cal.com itself. So we become one of the go-to. People have started using cal.com because they wanted to use Huddle as well. So that's an interesting kind of way. So that's first on the marketing team side. The second is like all these other scheduler apps like cal.com. So where you have a decentralized open schedulers or a open schedulers like who competes with Google Calendar or Calendly. So they're integrating in these places, then doing a lot of these community building exercises on Discord because that's where the proper Web3 community lives. So engaging with the cultures of these NFT-based communities, engaging with this open source community, engaging with these metaverse-based communities, and in general, the overall space when people who prefer pseudonymity and stuff. So being on those social platforms like Farcaster, Lens, DSO, Mastodon, and all these places, and making sure that these people are this funnel comes into our Discord, and they vibe there. Yeah.
So it almost sounds like when you're building an open source project, the easiest way to get users is just partnerships, right? Like I see Third Web, they get a lot of press or they get a lot of kind of attention on Twitter whenever they announce, today we just partnered with Shopify or with Polygon or with whatever like companies they partner with.
Yeah.
It almost feels like a hack if you want to like just get distribution really quickly is like build something that's open source or decentralized and just partner with people who are also open source or decentralized.
That's true. Yeah, that actually creates a lot of affinity, and it's a very good, I'll say, similar culture setting, which makes it very easy for you to like, hey, you know what, let's do partnership, which is more, I'll say, like a proper tangible in nature, and you get good. Yeah.
So you mentioned Farcaster and Mastodon. Do you actually think that there is a world where, or at least a world in the near future, where people actually get off Twitter and start using these alternative kind of like decentralized like Twitter alternatives?
Yeah, great question. I think I had a long chat with Dan Romero, the founder of Farcaster as well. Like we had a 1.5 hour call regarding this. I definitely believe I see a lot of potential in Farcaster. I was a power user once. I still use Farcaster, but more on the consumption side of things. I think creating a feed becomes over time so Farcaster was very, very closed source earlier, very, very closed group earlier. That means only the people who got the invite from Dan Romero directly were able to enter it. So it was like a proper place where you get the gems of information curated completely and stuff like that. And it looks very similar to Twitter. So there's not a lot of I don't have a lot of friction in terms of moving away and stuff. Plus the app looked very seamless in nature. So definitely believe that all these things which is happening right now with Twitter, I think it's the best time for apps which are getting built on Lens or Farcaster itself or Mastodon getting good adoption in general. I think Paul Graham also tweeted recently that he has been like he will be moving away to Mastodon, and I've been seeing a lot of people moving to Farcaster being power users there. A lot of users using Poster there. So I definitely see a world where there'll be a lot of small breeding grounds of conversations happening.
So we spend a lot of time thinking about like social strategies, right? What do you think about these like decentralized Twitter alternatives?
Well, I was more curious, why even video?
For us? Yeah, I think video, because in general, video consumes 80% of the overall traffic of the internet and real time in general. Now think about it, like we have innovated so much in the world of, as humans, we've innovated so much, but we still do calls in a 2D environment on Zoom or Google Meet. Like we are not able to move away and do a communication in a manner which would be much more like a immersive and experiential in nature if we are not IRL.
Yeah.
So there are things like Oculus which has come up. Hardware is also a constraint. But how about But the constraint is not just hardware. The constraint is also the infrastructure right now, how the infrastructure is built. I'll give you an example. So my nephew, his name is Naman. He lives in Bihar. That's like a state in India which it doesn't have a great internet connection. When COVID happened in 2021, he had to not go to school, was forced to stay at home, and he had to use Zoom to do his calls. Now, he had to use Zoom in tandem with WhatsApp for 2 years because the latency was so high. That means he was not able to even hear what the teacher was saying.
Yeah.
Because of how the infrastructure is built. That means all these data packets, where the calls were happening in India, all the data packets were routing through all the way to a central server in North Virginia and then coming back. Now, as these data packets travel more distance, the more there is heat loss. The more there is heat loss, the more there is jitter, buffer, robotic voices and stuff like that, which leads to a bad experience. Now, think about the snowball effect of this. He is in class standard 4th. Till standard 6th, he had a proper rote learning kind of an experience.
Yeah.
That's a proper like a snowball effect of he didn't learn algebra really well, for example. That trickles down to the overall 10 religious strength.
Yeah.
So that's why it's very important that you need to solve communication to a layer where it becomes like a proper open for everyone to use. It becomes borderless. It becomes neutral. It becomes censorship resistant. And it also becomes a kind of immersive in nature for people to have a better innovation once they're collaborating with each other.
Wow. Because we were just on a call with a Web3 company that we won't name, but he asked us, what are your, like, is Web3 dead is basically what he asked. And it's like, this goes back to your decentralized question, but is the branding wrong for Web3? Like, and you guys can both.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think this happened because of a lot of implosions which happens in the Web3 world in general. FTX happened, Luna happened, Celsius happened. And that leads to a like proper trust getting eroded. But there are a lot of projects who build for years and they try to build it under the wrap still its life. For example, so I really respect Helium. I really respect Filecoin.
What's Helium and what's Filecoin?
Yeah, so Filecoin is essentially a decentralized storage network where it's called an Airbnb for storage. For example, if you have a proper hard disk at your own home, you can have those hard disk. Like, let's suppose I have a hard disk of 5 terabytes. I just use 500 GB in that. But I have 4.5 terabytes left. I can actually put that on rent. That means I can use those, like, hey, you can use my space and you pay me this X amount of money. Instead of paying to AWS S3 or Glacier, you become a proper storage provider. So that's what they are solving. And that leads to a proper costing going down in general because there is a lot of supply. That means the costing goes down. So it's a pure economic model as compared to something like S3 or Glacier. So that's what Filecoin is doing for the last 5 years. It's cryptographically provable. It's encrypted in nature. Then something like LivePeer, where let's suppose we're doing a podcast right now and we want to live stream this. If we are live streaming this, we need to transcode this. For transcoding, we need a centralized transcoding device, like a proper server, which is expensive. Here comes LivePeer says, hold on, do you have a GPU? Like, yeah. Okay. Now you can use your GPU to basically transcode this. And instead of paying to central servers, you get paid. Like, okay, this is great. Same goes to something like Helium, where they say that, hey, do you use AT&T and Verizon? Like, yeah. Do you use those, like the big towers which are all out there? Like, hold on, you might not need to use that. Like for 5G, you can actually use something as LoRaWAN technology, where they try to decentralize the technology itself. So a lot of these technologies which are building over time that got decentralized over time and actually has value into it. Now, these are the protocols who are actually doing some very, very good groundwork. But these don't go into picture because these are not shiny. But shiny things are always like, hey, this token, there's a centralized exchange which got bombasted.
As a marketer, you can, come into that.
That's also like when you think about Instagram or Facebook, when you use them, you know what the utility is, right? It's like you don't need to know that it's built on React, or when I go to a website, I don't care that it's built on Next.js, right? I just get the functionality that I want out of the website. And I was in Web3, right? I think that there is a problem of people building projects that like they'll create a problem and then they'll solve it within Web3, right? So it's like, if I use Instagram, it's because I want, or if I use Twitter, it's because I want to go like look at information. I want to tweet something. That's like the utility is there. If I use Notion, right? Like the utility is very clear. It's organization of information. If I use Linear, like all these things are very clear. With Huddle, I actually see the benefit of being decentralized, but with a lot of Web3 projects, you don't see what that benefit is, and it feels very technical and worded in a way, or like when you think about wallet interactions, a lot of them aren't made in a way that the normal mainstream user could actually use.
Yeah.
Right. And so I do think it's a branding issue.
Yeah.
Because I think that there aren't enough design or UX people in the Web3 world.
Actually, I was in Denver, and this is exactly what I saw.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of developers. I saw one designer, maybe out of every 80
Just one?
developers. Yeah.
My dude
So I
saw
think
one.
that's-
He was like, all right, time to go home. I saw my one.
Look like?
Yeah, the designer was just sitting there like, hey, I think we need more designers. So
Like in the corner.
He was like in the corner of a room.
Yeah.
It's like that meme was like, they don't know I'm a designer.
Oh, with the drink and the
yeah, that's what happened actually. Yeah. So I think that should be solved.
You know, I think there's actually a really big opportunity for people to make money too, because there's a lot of money in the Web3 space.
Yeah.
There's more than one designer, right? But like there aren't as many as you would think. Same thing with marketing. There aren't as many good marketing people in the Web3 space as you would think. So it's like if someone comes along, they have a good like portfolio, they've worked with cool companies in the past, there's a huge opportunity to make a lot of money just for saying like, oh, I can consult on like a whatever retainer basis for your Web3 company and branding yourself as like the Web3 designer person. I'm sure there's already like 10 that already exist, but I'm sure there's space for more just because of how much money and how many Web3 companies there are.
How much of that are you guys thinking through when it comes to marketing, design?
You mentioned you have
UI,
designers.
UX, right? It sounds like you're very design first.
Yeah, because we build product first. That's a problem. I think one more problem which I see in this space in general is that there are a lot of research-based assumptions and not a market-validated assumptions. Once you start building products, you start realizing that the customers don't care about this thing. We had done multiple iterations of our meeting room to look at like where do people click on Google Meet for recordings? Where do people click here? Where does screen share comes to picture? Where should we have whiteboard and stuff like that? So I think for us, product design became very, very important since early 2021 itself.
Wow. Okay.
So we started seeing that very, very closely. But I still believe in terms of branding issues, we still need to work on that in general to make people realize that it's not Zoom for Web3. It's not just a platform which you should use. It's essentially a proper infrastructure and a network, and where just Zoom, like the first product of it is just the app layer, but there is a whole lot of infrastructure which there will be hundreds and hundreds of projects which can get built in a much more, I'll say, easier fashion as compared to, you cannot use Zoom's SDK right now to spin any kind of social app. For example, there's one more person sitting here, like Orb, Nilesh. Yeah. Now Nilesh, let's suppose he's a social app. It's a proper, and he needs a video and an audio while people to chat in the DMs. Now, how will he do that? Because the technology which he'll use is WebRTC, which is very difficult. So we abstract away that. We'll say, hey, hold on, Nilesh, use this SDK, 5 minutes, integrate it, and you're done.
So you're saying if I'm building like a social app, I'm building a Discord like competitor, I'm building an internal tool for like meetings.
Yes.
Instead of trying to build my own version of like a Discord like video or building my own version of Google Meet.
Yes.
I could just hit your API.
Absolutely. Same goes for something who wants to build a GatherTown.
Ooh.
They can use a GatherTown, and they want to have an audio and video, they can use our SDKs. And that's what is happening right now. A lot of people are building their own GatherTowns. People are building their own social apps. Even we're chatting with Nilesh as well. He needs an audio rooms, for example. He gets that. Farcaster, for example, needs let's suppose a Farcaster Spaces, like Twitter Spaces.
Yeah.
Mastodon needs a Mastodon Spaces. How will they do that? They will need an audio. And the best way to do that is that you can use Huddle 01 directly, because it's cheaper, it's aligned with their philosophies, and I think because there are a lot of alternatives who are serving that purpose.
So we've asked this question before, I think it was to Adam, where it's like, if he wanted to go fully decentralized, what would his bank stack look like? But for you, it's different. I think if you were to picture this world that's fully decentralized, no more Twitter, no more Instagram, what does that stack actually look like? Like, what are you replacing with decentralized alternatives?
Very interesting. So I think I'll replace YouTube with LensTube.
Does that already exist?
Yeah, it exists. LensTube is exactly like YouTube built over a Lens protocol. So where you can store all these, like you can do all these. So at Huddle as well, if you want to live stream, you can live stream onto Twitch, onto YouTube, onto your own players, and onto LensTube in one click. You can't do that on Zoom, by the way. So
wow, you can't, because you can only do one.
Once. We can do 4 at Huddle 01 at one click. So that solves distribution for you. So I think that's one of the more.
We should use that for our firesides.
Yeah, I think
that's a great idea.
Yeah. So I think that's one thing which is not Web3, but it's more like it solves a particular purpose for people.
Well, so if it's not Web3, why don't the other guys solve that?
I think they didn't see a proper, I think it also happens because you take very slow turns in general when you're a big company. And you know that there is some kind of value in this, but when to reach that value, you take more time in general to build those products. And we saw that earlier, hey, a lot of these people, they want to just stream on Twitch and onto YouTube into one click. And also onto Twitter using Periscope into one click, and also on their own players. So like, okay, let's give them that.
So with LensTube, one thing I'm curious about is it's YouTube but decentralized.
Yeah.
So basically, I could put up a video about whatever and it doesn't get deleted.
That's true.
How do you filter that for...
The content moderation?
Yes.
I don't have a great answer to that question.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Also for ad buying, it's like, how does
the platform...
Where's the monetization angle here?
Yeah, for the ad buyings, I think here, this very interesting chat with I think Shane Mack from XMTP, he's building a messaging protocol, was saying that we have to move away from ad-based mechanisms to more like a consent-based mechanism where you're like, now, for example, let's suppose people are building these new MailChimps for Web3, for example, using XMTP as a messaging protocol. Or using something like even Huddle 01 or something like other protocols which are out there. Now, instead of just saying that, hey, for every $1, you get 5,000 emails which you can blast, where every email has the same value. Instead of that, now you have different values to different kind of emails based on consent of people. So this is something which Brave also does if you think about it. Where Brave browser, that it's asked me that, hey, you know what? Do you want 3 ads per day, 5 ads per day, 10 ads per day, or 0 ads per day? If you have 10 ads per day, we'll give you 2 BAT tokens, for example, 0.2 BAT tokens. So that's what we use, for example. So I use Brave, so I get a lot of BAT tokens because I get a lot of ads.
You do the 10 ads per day?
I do 10 ads per day.
Okay.
Yeah. Because
at what point are you upset though? Let's be honest.
I think in terms of the context of ads, it might not be exactly as specific as maybe a search ad. But these display ads are very, very targeted as well because it uses in-page machine learning. That means it doesn't track you. But the searches which you do.
Give me some examples of ads you get.
I get ads of Ledger, for example. Let's suppose I want to buy. Let's suppose there's an FTX implosion which happened. Which happened because I put my money into centralized exchange. So I get hold on, use Ledger, which is a cold wallet. So,
what if you use ad block?
Use ad block?
Yes.
I think if you use ad block in general, I think you can use ad block for blocking these ads in general on YouTube.
Would you still get paid by Brave if you use ad block?
I don't know. I don't think so. I've never tried that. But the first token which I bought was not Bitcoin or Ethereum. It was bad because I was blown away. Like, hey, because I'd done 5 years of Google advertising. So I was actually a proper PPC expert. Like a paid, I paid marketing for a while. And then something happened where I saw that, hey, this is like insane level of attacking people in their eyes was just to show them ads. With remarketing pixels and all those things. I don't want to do that right now. Then I saw Brave. Hey, this is a cool way to have a good CTR rate as well, and you can have a good experience.
The worst when ads didn't optimize for mobile, and I'd always get the Samsung ad on ESPN on the app, and I'd click it to click out of the ad. Try to click the X, and I'd keep clicking Samsung at least 5 times. But it goes back to them as 5 clicks on the website. And the ad agency makes money off that.
Exactly. This is not transparent at all. You can't even know that. There's a very interesting thing that even if what counts as ad, if you search that on Google right now, it says that if there is a pixel which is just 50%, which covers 50% of this amount of screen, will count as ad. So that means that even if that ad is not getting seen completely, they'll count it as a CPM, like a cost per 1,000 impressions in general, which is pretty strange.
Okay. So to go back to the initial question, instead of YouTube, you're using LensTube. What else?
So instead of Twitter, I'll use Farcaster.
Why Farcaster?
It's very seamless to use in general. So I'm on that. I have that app as well. So I use that for proper right now on streaming, in terms of just consuming content.
How many likes will a tweet get on Farcaster?
What's the question?
How many likes on average will a tweet on Farcaster get?
So I earlier used to get around 30.
Oh, okay, that's actually not bad.
Now I'm getting around 8-ish.
Oh, okay.
8, 10-ish. But I think that happened because a lot of people, earlier the community was 3,000 people. Now it has gone up to I think 8 or 10,000 people.
Gotcha.
So I think that's where it becomes difficult because you need to curate the feed now to make sure that. And that Twitter has a lot of data to do that. And that's why it will take time for package to read that, but
Makes
it's
sense.
very sleek.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what else are you switching out?
Yeah, I think then I switched from Chrome to Brave a while back. So that's one of the things again which I use. And then one more. I switched from Zoom to Huddle 01 as well.
Okay.
No, really.
What about email?
Email, I'm thinking I actually shifted to Proton Mail for a while, but the UI is not great. So I was on Gmail. I'm in Gmail still, but I'm trying to use Skiff now.
Skiff is
SKI.
great.
Yeah.
Skiff, the UI on Skiff is amazing. I feel like of all decentralized whatever Web3 companies, they've done it the best.
Yeah.
Do we need that decentralized email?
Do we need decentralized email?
I think Skiff is great. That not just decentralized emails. Actually,
They have a Notion. They have
they have a lot of stuffs. Like they have a Notion. They have all these things. Where where the idea is pretty simple. They believe that these things, let's suppose, it belongs to you. You can take it away from this platform. It can also be composable to other platforms.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you can just it's an Iron Man kind of stuff. Like you can just use it.
They have their
to
own
other
calendar.
places.
Like, well, actually, I think they have their own calendar.
Yeah,
They're
they
like
have
a
their
whole
own calendar.
alternative, like Google Drive suite.
What don't we need in Web3? You give me a bunch of like, we need this. Give me a few of like, this does not need to be built using Web3.
I think a lot of infrastructures now. We have a lot of infrastructures.
Yeah.
I believe that we don't need a lot of infrastructures. We need more products now. So that would be my answer. That we don't need more roads. We need more cars now. So let's get more cars.
It's like 20 different AWS competitors and no one's building anything on top of them.
yeah,
Your play though is B2B, yeah?
yeah,
Webinars, that comes to mind immediately.
yeah.
When
so
I think of
exactly. So our plays. I think the maximum money which we'll make in general will be using our SDKs. That means people who are building Gather-on, people building social apps, they need audio and video SDKs. The current pricings of the competitors are Agora, for example, or which is expensive.
yeah.
Jitsi is difficult to use. It's not good quality. So now they have to turn to something which is more economical for them
Yeah.
and also very easy, very developer friendly and stuff, which we can do right now because we've already built a product using our own infrastructure. So we can serve them better in terms of, hey, there's a client rendering issue. There's a front end issue on your app. So we can explain them things in a much more methodical fashion in general. So that's why we're doing a lot of grants, a lot of hackathons, where we're seeing that a lot of people are building on top of us. And a lot of people are like, there are a few breakout apps which are coming up. So we're going bottom up first with these grants and hackathons kind of approach. But the main goal is that we want to go after the other markets like education, D2C, live e-commerce, as well as, but to play on these levels, you need to have a good amount of treasury in your war chest to play on that level. So the approach is very simple, that get a lot of breakout apps on top of it. And then go after this bigger markets where the sales cycles are a lot larger with edtech, with healthcare, e-commerce, and D2Cs and all those.
I assume India is a big market for you guys.
Yeah, edtech in India is a big market for us. Healthcare in general is a big market in general. So we are getting HIPAA compliance in general for our so that we can do that, and also complying to all these COPPA laws and stuff like that. So that makes us like a good defensibility as compared to the other centralized tech stacks.
So you grew up in India?
I grew up in India. I grew up actually in Bihar, and then I shifted when I was second standard. Then I went to Noida, which is very close to Delhi.
Okay.
I did my schooling from Noida, and then I moved to Jaipur. Jaipur was the place where it's a place proper where I had 4 years of my college. And then my journey was that I was electrical engineer. I did electrical engineering, but never really liked it. So from my second year itself, I did a lot of fest hackathons. I used to conduct a lot of fest in my college, and then I became a Google student ambassador.
Oh wow!
And that's how I got to know about Google AdWords. Like, hey, this is great. 2014. Like this is magic. I can target anyone.
Oh, you were early.
Yeah. Any place. And then there was a Google Lens, Google Glass coming up at that time. It didn't blow up.
Yeah.
But I used to go to these colleges and say, hey, this is Google Glass. This is the new AR stuff which is coming up and stuff. And that's how I entered this Google AdWords space in 2015. Did that for 4 or 5 years. So growth, proper, and product. And then 2019, I started reading a book, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Like, hey, you know what? I think I'm doing some stuff here, but behavioral economics was a very interesting field. And I started seeing that behavioral economics along with game theory, mechanism design is a very interesting concept which could be productized in terms of, in blockchain actually.
Yeah.
And that was my reasoning into like trying out. And then I saw Brave browser and like, hey, whatever I was doing for the 5 years, they flipped that model completely on its head.
Yeah.
And they started building something where the economy has changed from like your like targeting to more like attention economy based on just the primitives. So you can make any system bottom up if you know what you're building in terms of product. So
makes sense.
Yeah, so I think that was my story. And then in 2020, I was flying actually to University of Stirling, Scotland for my master's in behavioral economics. But then COVID happened. My admission got deferred by 3 months. And then I was just participating in ETH Global Hackfest in 2020 of July.
Yeah.
And that's where I and Sushmit came together, and we saw that Zoom and a couple of other players were facing a lawsuit. There was a lot of Zoom bombings happening, a lot of these bombings happening. Like, hey, there's some privacy issues, something happening here. And that's where we built a peer-to-peer call, added a layer of Filecoin for recordings, and added these kind of interesting plays, which blew up. We won the hackathon. We got into an accelerator called Consensus Techion Accelerator. We raised our first round, and then from there, Hocus Pocus, we are 15 people strong. Yeah.
Wow.
Nice. And so you've kind of been in Bangalore when you were building out Huddle initially?
So yeah, I was in Bangalore. So I actually from Jaipur, I went to Bombay first, and then from Bombay, I was in Bangalore all the time. Yeah.
And so now you kind of built most of your startup in Bangalore. Now you've been here and you've been building in SF.
Yeah.
What are the differences that like someone might not realize between building a startup in SF and then building something in India?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I've been seeing a lot of similarities between SF and Bangalore, to be honest, in terms of when I'm sitting in a coffee shop having a conversation, like the kind of founders in general, like kind of entropy which is there of people building stuffs. One thing which I liked about SF more was that the kind of diversification which was there in terms of thinking of different kind of categories, and a lot of forefront in terms of technology in general. For example, I just went to Elad Gil's yesterday's conversation, which was happening with
Stripe.
Clement. Yeah, at Stripe. And I saw the kind of talk which was happening, which will take around 2 months to reach to Bangalore, because the things are happening at the forefront here in SF, where people talk about LLMs, the large language models. They talk about AI research, AI startups. And then it has a trickle-down effect, and then this private information tries to go to public over time. And stuff. So I think that's how we are seeing that the more diversification, more kind of discussions on different kind of various fronts.
Interesting.
And which reaches Bangalore. But once it reaches Bangalore, this is a very frantic, like fast building on top of stuff. So I think that's the kind of similarity and the kind of difference. Plus, traffic is one more concern, which is there in Bangalore. I think that leads to a lot of time waste for a founder in general, because you need to travel a lot if you need to like meet people in the events, meetups and stuff. SF is comparatively way smaller, and also you can reach people like places in 20 minutes and stuff like that. So those things also really helps you in interacting, networking more.
So I was in Bangalore last year, and I was going to like the third wave kind of coffee shops.
Yeah, that's the best.
Yes. Yeah. And so I remember I was there once and I was wearing my Berkeley hoodie. This guy kind of like, he notices that he starts talking to me. He's like full like American accent.
Yeah.
He turned out he was actually from San Jose, which is where I'm from, right? An hour south of here.
It was me. I'm the guy.
Really? No? Okay.
Yeah, he was there and then we started and then we ended up here.
Okay, cool.
But no, he was actually from like, I forget what it was. It was either Pear or A16Z. We kept talking about both of them. And then I started talking to him about like what startups were like there. And one thing he mentioned that was interesting was that he said he would never, or it would be very hard to find a founder who cracked SF's market to be able to break into India's market, right? Because you guys have your own versions of things. Like I can't use Uber there. I had to use like Ola or Opa or something. I couldn't use DoorDash. I had to use like Zomato or whatever the other thing is. Ziggy, Swiggy.
Yeah.
So why is it that the markets are so different in India where the exact same functionality of an app has to be entirely rebuilt for the market?
I think one of the things is, I'll give you an example with the e-commerce coming up in India with Flipkart coming up in India earlier, which where Amazon and Flipkart were like the lock, like they used to lock horns in terms of buying any stuffs online.
Yeah.
India has a lot of discount-driven mentality and insane. And Ola in general is an Indian-based product in terms of your car service. Like if you take a car, so Uber and Ola also used to lock. They had a proper lock horns. But this discount-driven mentality also leads to a lot of people. The coupon codes in general becomes your CAC. Like the CAC is small, your cost of acquisition of customer, but the more hammering of coupon codes you do, the more you're able to lock people in general there. And that's like a lot. Like I got 4 coupons from DoorDash. Like I just 4 coupons. I used to get this around 40 in India.
Wow.
Like so I used to, every week I get a new coupon code on Swiggy. That makes me use it more. Plus the apps become more interactive over time. So I use DoorDash and I use Swiggy, and I find DoorDash very bland. Swiggy is really shiny. I can see that, hey, you man, there's so many different kind of dishes. There's this one which is most recommended, and then there's many stars, chef recommendation and stuff like that. So it's much more playful in nature. There's more life which is gone into those apps, which makes me like, hey, this happens because there's more more time on site which is getting spent on these kind of apps in general.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool. So we do this thing towards the end. I'm going to hit you with the rapid fire section, and then we're going to look over kind of some of your old tweets.
Okay.
No.
So for the rapid fire, the first question is, what's the best advice you've ever received pertaining to like decentralized, like building in Web3?
That decentralization is not a switch, but a slider. So build products first, then open your infrastructure.
Valid. And then what's the worst advice you've ever received?
Can I be your chief token officer? Launch token on day one.
Nice. Got a favorite book? Think Fast. Or
Think Fast and Slow.
What's it about?
It's about behavioral economics and basically merger of economics and psychology in general. So it's a book written by like Daniel Kahneman and also by Amos Tversky. He hasn't written, but he's from Israel, and he talks about a lot about the biases which people have in general. So
Nice. And then what is one app you can't live without?
One app I can't live without.
Don't say Huddle.
Twitter. Yeah.
Ouch. Same. Probably.
Yeah.
Then
I got one more.
Okay.
Rapid fire. We asked the third web guys this. Oh, how do you explain what you do to your parents?
I say that use, like, we have a video call where you look better.
That's how you explain it?
Yeah.
Do they know anything about Web3?
No.
No, nothing. They ask?
They say that, hey, he's building a software.
In India, what's the Web3 appetite?
In India, Web3 is exploded completely.
Yeah? Oh.
Yeah. Because of the system of the grants-based ecosystem and stuff like that, it's been exploded. So the lot of developers, they start building it from the age of 14, 13 and stuff. Even schools, people are building it.
Yeah.
Enormous potential. So it's just that you need more directions. But the kind of apps which they can build, I think, which Omar also mentioned a point was, some of there are problems which are not there, but you create those problems because you wanted to create that app. I think if that gets navigated a bit more, there are more accelerators, more veterans who are explaining to these people that, hey, why it's needed.
Yeah.
Maybe acclimatize yourself with Bitcoin white paper and then basically go after building anything. Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. Let's just dive into your Twitter, and I'll start with this one. The amount of views and you tag the All In Pod gets is criminally underrated, and you tweeted that last year. It gets millions of views.
Well,
man.
everyone talks about that.
What do you mean? It's criminally underrated?
They're like ranked in top 5 in all like business podcasts.
Yeah, now I think, but 1 year back when I was doing it, it was like, I still believe like it's not like they still need more views. Because I'm able to chat with people here in general, but not at a lot of places. Like in India also, I've started, my friends have started watching it, but still not a lot. Like in every 10, there are 2 who watch it.
You're saying in India or here?
In India.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to conquer next, the Indian market.
Yeah.
Seriously, what's the podcast market there? Like, are they consuming content?
I think they're consuming content, but I think we require a lot of, to be honest, completely. If I watch All In, I'm not able to watch any of the podcasts of the Indian-based creators.
Why?
General. I think it's the variety and the depth of knowledge. Like it's walk the talk. Like a lot of content creators, there are a lot of content creators, but there's not a lot of walk the talk. It's not a lot of show don't tell. So
have you watched My First Million?
I haven't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Different markets.
That might be a good one for you.
Oh yes, I have. I have watched it. Yes.
What's wrong with it?
It didn't catch my attention, I think, in the first go, because I had a lot of content already. I was streaming on Twitter, and not a lot of people to vibe on those things. Not a lot of people recommended it the first time.
Interesting.
Every time we came here, we were saying we're thinking about doing a podcast. We're like, oh, so My First Million, like every other person in the lab.
And we liked Logan Paul's podcast.
Yeah.
Impulsive.
Yeah.
And nobody knew what it was.
Nobody.
Wow.
And we were like, that has hundreds of millions of views, probably.
It's interesting how segmented markets are.
Yeah.
I like All In's podcast because it's a bunch of billionaires who are probably smarter than me, like arguing with each other. It's very rare to replicate that.
Who's your bestie?
This is the Chamath one?
Yes.
Okay.
Who's your bestie?
Okay. Well, now you put it like that. I like listening to Chamath probably, although I know there's a lot of
What do you
baggage that comes
think of
with that.
Chamath in terms of like everyone talks about the SPACs and the controversy?
Yeah.
What do you think?
And Chamath is a really, really smart person.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe that in general, the heated arguments which he has with majorly with David Friedberg, not with David Sachs and stuff,
Yeah.
it has a lot of value. And he also has a lot of variety of knowledge from be it nuclear to the overall space and climate to the overall space and this. But he's also he first, maybe. And then
He's definitely said some things that I really don't agree with.
Yeah.
But he had this talk at Stanford, it's like business school or whatever.
That was really good.
Right.
Yeah.
Where he was basically talking about like how actually to bring about world change. Probably watched it when I was like 16, 17, and I've watched it like 10 times since then.
Wow.
Well, yes. And actually, oppose that, if you watch the Wharton one, he actually says that he regrets being so forthright in the Stanford one because he lost a lot of friends. That's what he mentions. Because he completely went after, like, obliterated Facebook in general. Like, hey, you know what? I'm completely off Facebook. You shouldn't use it and stuff like that. And he lost a lot of friends because of that. So, like, I'm controlling my forthrightness. So I like that about him a lot.
Interesting.
He's very forthright. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you said here, this is a good one. At the end of the day, it's all velocity and distribution.
Yeah.
Like that's.
I think that also comes into picture of in thinking about tokens in general. I think for me, tokens is more like I know that we give a lot of bad talk about dollars in general, like USD.
Yeah.
But USD there's a reason USD is the reserve currency because it has the highest velocity and the most distribution. That's the reason why countries also hold it. So if you need to create any kind of tokens, you need to think about these tenets that it should have high velocity and more distribution. That's the only way you can make people hold your tokens. Otherwise, it's just...
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then I think this is a good one, timely on Web3. Like your so-called network and supposedly social status might quickly evaporate in a bear market. Don't optimize for networking, optimize for your product, team, and functional role in the org and relentless execution.
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of relationships get destroyed in the bear markets. And a lot of relationships based on just the tangible money outcomes.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's better that you should have a good culture at your organization. Try to build good, like a proper, keep your burn rates minimal, but always over execute on those places. And just don't make much of these money-based relationships when the markets are completely on the helm of it. So yeah, and also I believe that dumping of those tokens onto community, that you need to protect that a lot, and that's why a lot of relationships get destroyed, a lot of trust get destroyed.
Yeah.
So we need to have a good model there. Yeah.
But can you ever time bull versus bear? Like
Whatever Jim Cramer says, just do the opposite and you'll be okay.
I don't think so. You can
Right?
no, but yeah, you can actually see a couple of macro events, and based on that, you can back calculate that. Hey, I think now is the good time to go towards the pushing of marketing in general, because in tokens in general, not in tokens, that means in USD as well. Hype is also a value, and hype is created in the bull market. So when you see that there is a market going up with markets becoming better, so I think you should follow. I forgot the name always. He has a very, very. You remember that who mentions about this the first world thinking?
Ray Dalio?
Ray Dalio, yeah.
Or Balaji?
Yeah. Ray Dalio.
Okay.
Yeah. So Ray Dalio, I think, is also another person. If he's writing something on YouTube regarding stagflation, you should be ready that it's a stagflation.
Zero principles. And then,
Yeah.
So-
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, is that the last tweet?
That is, but give us some F1. Give us some F1 insight.
Red Bull fan?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. This is my brother's actually. He's a proper Verstappen fan, so I follow him in terms of he's like a proper nerding out on the Verstappen news.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why, and also I drink a lot of Red Bull. So I let's buy.
Can we get you guys? Can you guys be the official streaming partner for F1?
I wish.
Is that a goal? Is that
It's yeah. I actually saw that actually happening, and I was like, hey, yeah, Agora is doing that. I wanted to do that. Yeah.
Oh, Agora's doing it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So okay, next time. But I also saw a lot of billboards actually in SF of Agora, of Twilio. Like this is the place. And then I was also thinking about I saw Russ Hanneman's like a recent video where he was just Silicon Valley's guy.
Yeah.
What's the video?
So something he was just talking about his startup in general. Like he's talked about something like 3 commas that he had. So it's like, okay, next time when I'm here, I'll make sure that Russ talks about Huddle's video compression algorithm and stuff like that.
Bro, the funny part is that's what he's doing. Remember they pivot to the video platform?
They did.
Yeah. So we are actually
First person to put.
We're trying to put that. Hey, we are just cut Pied Piper and just add Huddle 01 there.
Give us, I guess, last one for me. Give us one bold prediction for Web3 that nobody's talking about.
That compute in general, like all these AI-based models in general, will over time require Web3 as a foundation layer to decrease the costings. For ChatGPT's costing to go down from $20 per month to $10 per month, I think will require the foundation layer of Web3.
Awesome. Well, I guess we'll end it there. Ayush, thanks for coming on.
This is great. Awesome. It was awesome.
We're going to put your Twitter and Huddle's account in the description.
No, just Huddle. They got to go to Huddle. And
No, Ayush, they don't know Ayush.
Okay, sure. Let's go to 12K. 11.9 it is right now.
All right. Everyone, thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. We'll see you next week.